Hi, I'm Greg Stewart, CEO of MMA Global, the international nonprofit trade association for CMOs who are focused on architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, market researcher, measurement inventor, and entrepreneur.
So Rex, today is going to be kind of interesting because we're going to talk about some of, I think, the real fear that marketers, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty, I would say, about marketers out there right now. Their jobs are going to be lost by AI, that it's going to take over the world. I think there's a group there, not like us, the innovators just say, like, bring it on, we like new. But certainly it feels to them like everything's going to change, right?
Yeah, I'm certainly listening to a lot of people having these conversations about, does it replace us, does it augment us, et cetera. And I was just talking to a venture capitalist yesterday who'd been part of the digital transformation. I said, I was at Wired in the early part. I think this is at least one order, if not two orders of magnitude bigger when we look at AI. And a big part of it is because of its ability to transform how we do work. And I know a lot of people might not be super excited to hear of an AI marketer that can maybe do all the work. We're not trying to scare anybody, but I do think that we're getting to a future where it becomes more and more and more capable as we begin to build more AI. And our guest today, Adam Brotman, he's really been in this world of digital transformation at companies like J.Crew and Starbucks. He has been focused, customer-facing businesses and super focused on what those transformations look like. And now he's a co-founder and co-CEO at a company called Forum 3, an AI lab. And I'm super excited to have him share his perspective of where he thinks things are going.
Yeah, me too. It's funny you say that, Rex, because I think that actually Adam is very similar, and his partner here are very similar to what the MMA is trying to do as a nonprofit. Like, how do we help progress marketers? He's built this product called Spok. We might talk about that a little bit. It's for small, medium-sized businesses, but that's actually trying to, I think. Well, I don't know. We should probably let Adam tell us, but I think it's trying to sort of create process for marketers to sort of ingest AI and apply it to marketing. So I guess no further ado, Adam, welcome to Decoding AI for Marketers.
Thanks, guys. I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys.
Right.
Yeah, well, tell us about what you're building and what you're doing in this AI applied lab, and maybe draw a bit on some of your transformation experience and what you're seeing in the adoption today. Just give us a sense of what you're working on.
So first of all, you should almost picture my business partner, Andy Sack, who's my co-founder, as if he was here with me. Everything we've done at Forum 3, we've done as a unit and as partners. He and I both come from, I can say now, like a multi-decade career of working either as investors, entrepreneurs, operators around some pretty large companies and some startups as well, but always at the forefront of how do we connect whatever's coming next in terms of technology and connecting the dots and bringing it and helping, you could call it brands primarily, embrace and navigate that. And with Forum 3, we started the company a couple of years ago, and with that mission in mind, just that general mission, but to productize that and create services. And we've got clients like Starbucks and Anheuser-Busch InBev and Crumble Cookies and Seattle Sounders soccer team and Tishman Speyer Real Estate. So you can see it's a wide range of both size and type of business, but with the common mission of let's create a set of services, content, and even software that helps embrace the latest technology, which right now is clearly is Gen AI. And it's so for us at Forum 3, the reason we call ourselves an AI lab is because of two reasons. One, we're still learning. Like a lab kind of connotes this idea of experimentation and learning and figuring things out. And that's very, very much appropriate for where we're at. And it's also kind of like a lab because we're doing a lot of different things. And, for example, we're writing a book with Harvard Business Review called AI First that really is our AI journey, where we've talked to Sam Altman, Reid Hoffman, Mustafa Suleyman, Bill Gates, and hundreds of business leaders to try and figure out like what is the playbook for how a marketer or a business leader should adopt AI. So that alone is a big work stream of ours. It's content, it's learning, it's developing a playbook, which we've then have now rolled into providing, you could call them consulting services, but we've really productized those consulting services into a set of AI first boot camps, fractional AI officer services. And then slowly but surely now some software products are starting to roll out of the lab. Our latest of which we're really excited about, which you guys alluded to, called Spok, which is it's at spok.app, and it's effectively the beginnings of what could ultimately be an AI marketer. And it's a combination of taking some AI models and combining them with data and marketing intelligence to see if we can't create something that would be really useful for marketers. It's not really meant to replace marketers. It's meant to help marketers. But I think that line between replacing and helping is getting very blurry right now with AI. And we can talk more about that as we go along in the conversation.
I love that. And just to give the listeners sort of orientation, so Adam, you were Chief Digital Officer at Starbucks at the time that they were releasing mobile payments, right?
That's right. So my team and I was I think the first Chief Digital Officer of any public company, but it doesn't matter. Like I was a very early Chief Digital Officer, early enough that I used to be a little embarrassed when the first month or two that I had that title, because it didn't really exist. And it was a hybrid role that was really about, bringing a number of disciplines from marketing to technology, product management, loyalty, advanced analytics, and sort of realizing that in reality, you have to combine all those things together to create the right digital strategy. And so we created the Chief Digital Officer group, and we called the group Digital Ventures. And we created the team, created and led the way on the Starbucks loyalty program, the Starbucks mobile app, mobile payments, mobile ordering, personalized marketing. We called it our digital flywheel.
Yeah, I love it. Listen, hey, Rex, if I could just say here, just for this, Adam, it's funny about this. I remember, so listen, I was a .com guy myself. Rex was out there at that period of time too, but originally from New York. So I had flown out, and I remember in 2010, I remember exactly when it was. I flew out in 2010 to meet with whoever out there at the time. I don't remember. I don't know if I was angel investing or maybe doing MMA. And I was in a Starbucks, and I watched everybody. I didn't see this in New York, but everybody in San Francisco washed up, flashed their phone. I still to this day remember standing and go, that's a big damn deal. That is, right away, I was like, oh my God, I just saw the Earth axis shift in some regards. And now, I mean, who doesn't pay with Apple Pay, at least, if not, many of other sort of mobile driven.
Yeah. For a long time at Starbucks, we were the leader in terms of number of mobile payment transactions over even Apple Pay or Android Pay or whatever.
Nobody else was anywhere as close to you guys. That was the first time I'd seen it. And it was San Francisco. It took San Franciscoans, I thought, to adopt. They were the ones who got it first, in my opinion, what I saw.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Well, that's why I wanted to unpack with you, actually, Adam, if I could, which is that we'll talk about the technical part and what you're doing with AI in a bit. But first, transformation, I've got a chief AI officer role, and basically, I drew the map for the CEO and said, look, there's forming, storming, norming, performing. I need to do a lot of storming. That's going to last for at least 4 months. I'm going to make people really, really uncomfortable. They're going to push back, and I'm going to need you to step in occasionally and back it up and make it happen. And I had to also peel apart my own development team, my own engineers, my own full stack, my own whatever, because I did not want to be dependent on anybody, on the CTO. No offense to him, he's a great guy, but transformation is hard. Talk to us about what you learned in that experience and what your advice is for people trying to build an AI first company, about what you need as a team, what you need as capabilities, what you need as partners. And then we'll get more into the technical part. But I think that you're uniquely qualified because you made that transformation happen in a really big company like Starbucks to show the listeners the way.
Yeah. I mean, at Starbucks, what worked really well, and I want to give credit to the CEO when I was there, was Howard Schultz. And he even though he wasn't a digital expert by any stretch, he had great instincts and probably the best instincts as a leader and brand builder. And he said something to me on my first day that was incredibly vital, which he was like, look, you need to understand the business and you need to gain trust and credibility from the teams. And once you do that, you can do anything. And that advice was crucial, because what happened was that I spent the first couple months, as you're saying, Rex, really learning the business and studying what was happening in Silicon Valley. So there was a combination of being curious and open about, like, what was everyone in the company doing? How did the business work? What made them tick? Like, what, asking them and being really clear on what their goals and needs were, how they fit into the broader picture of how the business worked. At the same time, really taking the time to learn and be humble about not just the business, but also the technology landscape. And at some point, if you do that well, you can build trust and credibility. You can present within the organization the reasons why the organization should want to adopt this technology, the power of it for them, not for you, not just because it's a shiny object bolt on that looks good or sounds good, but because it will actually help the business achieve its goals, help the individual leaders achieve their goals. And at that point, the whole organization will actually carry you. And if you do that well, that's how you become an effective transformation agent. And I think that was true clearly at Starbucks in the chief digital officer role and everything we did. And credit goes to everyone that was there, starting with the CEO, Howard Schultz, but also everyone that was on my team, and then everyone that was on all the functional and business line teams that frankly were teaching us at the digital team what was important to them and why we could then connect the dots on the digital landscape. And I actually think that's even more true when it comes to AI and a chief AI officer role or building an AI first culture. I think that same playbook applies.
Wow, I think that's a lot of wisdom.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And I just to break it down, and then Greg, I think you probably want to take this in another direction. But your point about the first 90 days, I think of it as a S curve or a sigmoidal curve where you have almost like you're not really. I remember when I first joined, like in a week after I joined, they're like, "Oh, can we get the roadmap of what we're going to do?" And I remember stalling and basically setting up and saying, "Okay, well, I want to meet with all these people first. I want to then go here." And I was basically stalling to give myself 90 days to figure out the business and where they were at. And you did it in a much more positive way, which is you were basically enrolling people to work with you with the CEO's support. And it sounds like that took roughly 90 days, and then you're able to come back and say, okay, here are some of the initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it took longer.
What do you do that transition from learning the business to when people begin to push back and not want to move as fast as you think the company needed to move?
It took more like a year, but I'll explain. It wasn't like a year of just storming, as you put it. It was a year of putting plans together and putting some plans in action, but it was a full year, and I'll explain what I mean. So when I got to Starbucks, I started as an individual contributor, and which is remarkable, right? With this mandate to create a digital strategy, but pretty quickly, it ended. You flash forward a little bit, and I had this amazing team that were all galvanizing around these sort of ideas around what digital transformation, what digital strategy at Starbucks would mean. But in the meantime, I was doing things like volunteering to join the U.S. leadership team for the U.S. operations of Starbucks and showing up at 7:30 every morning with the other leaders, learning, what made the business tick. And at the same time, starting to develop on my whiteboard, and I painted my whole office white, literally in whiteboard paint, my whole office, and starting to really just take notes and try to, sketch out what I was thinking, what I was learning, what the company was thinking. And at some point, what started to happen was, yes, I was developing this plan and this vision and this strategy with the team, but also the team itself had all these great ideas, and the business, both functional leaders and GMs were explaining to us on my team, like what moved the business. And so what that would allow me to do is actually, me and my team to do, is to actually start rolling out a roadmap that would actually make total sense to the company. Because it was like a combination of, as when you're a marketer or a digital person, you're usually dealing with like a tech deficit. Let's be honest. Like I've never met a marketer at any size company that says, "Oh, I've got all the resources I need, and I don't have any tech debt I have to worry about, and all of our data is clean and perfect and ready to use." Like that I've never heard that. So what you got to remember, you're not doing these transformations in a vacuum. You're having to sort of think about like, okay, what is the current state of affairs in all these other areas? What are these other teams wrestling with, and why? And how can we bring in a digital strategy, or in the case of AI, an AI strategy that's actually that every one of those leaders is going to say, "Oh, I see why you're doing that, and I actually participated in that, and I get it." And so at Starbucks, for example, it's funny. We launched, the very first thing we did as a digital ventures team is we launched free Wi-Fi. And if you guys remember, you probably remember that it was in 2000.
I do.
It was
Yeah.
in 2010.
Very, very exciting.
Yeah, and it was. Now, was that?
Thank you for the bandwidth, by the way.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yes, you didn't do what the airlines have done. Thank you. You didn't make me both. You didn't give me what I wanted and then make me hate you.
Yeah.
Which was good.
Well, that was
the airlines have done.
some of what that came from. It's interesting if you think about it. Like, was that a core part of our digital strategy? Yes and no. I mean, our digital strategy and our flywheel at Starbucks ended up being much more around connecting loyalty, payment, ordering, a mobile product, a web product, and operations and data together. Like that's how we sort of created the flywheel. So where did free Wi-Fi come in? Well, at the time when I started in 2009, the company have negative store comps. And so like they needed traffic, they needed butts and seats, they needed people in the door.
Oh, so you did it just to drive. You were the customer acquisition plan.
That was exactly right. And it was a way of showing the customers that we were going to start embarking on some really interesting customer experience enhancements using digital, because on the back of the free Wi-Fi, we created a thing called the Starbucks Digital Network, which was, you go to the landing page, most people just disregard the landing page, but Starbucks had something like 20 million monthly unique visitors to their "you're now connected to Wi-Fi" landing page. So we then went off to like Wall Street Journal, LinkedIn, ESPN, Marvel Comics. We went to all these content providers and said, "Why don't you give us unique premium content that we can put on the Wi-Fi landing page?" So when we rolled out the free Wi-Fi, we didn't do it as just we're Starbucks, here's free Wi-Fi. We did it in a way that was on brand, which was like, we're here to enhance your experience. We're here to be a coffee house culture. So again, the way you roll out these initiatives has to make sense to the brand, has to make sense to everyone that's involved. And that's going to be true of these AI initiatives when we talk about them in a minute too, whether they're external, customer facing, or internal. Like you just don't, like Rex said, you don't just show up one day as a consultant or a new chief AI officer and say, "Oh, give me 30 days, 60 days and I'll figure it out." Like it just doesn't work that way. You need to go through a more authentic process.
I think this is why I actually do either turnarounds or startups, because it allows me to be dictator from day one, and I just get to make the decisions and move forward, because that's how turnarounds have to happen. But your points are all valid. So on. Hey, Adam, a question for you here. So what is the work that you're doing with sort of big enterprise level marketers? Like, what are you guys trying to do and guide them in AI? What's the advice? I know you've got some training programs. You mentioned the book earlier, which I think is available now in digital form on your website, even. Just for the listener.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But what do you do when you go in and you guys advise them? What's that part of your business or your data collection, even if that's all you're doing it for?
So the advice we give marketers is similar to the advice we give non-marketers and other leaders, but we definitely have entire marketing departments as clients, and so I can speak to the marketing side, which is that the first thing we suggest is that that either everyone in the company, which is usually too bold for most companies, or a subset of leaders need to get AI literate. They need to get proficient. They need to get their hands on these tools and these systems and get, at least somewhat proficient. They don't need to become experts, but they need to spend, call it 10 hours of aggregate time experimenting, playing with the technology. You need to start getting clear that they should be bringing it to the table every day and using it as a collaboration tool, as a soundboard, not just trying to think about like, what is some whiz bang line of business app I can develop with this thing. And then if they do that, then they are going to need to also start forming some governance and some rules around it, which is sounds weird. It sounds like almost anti-innovation to like stifle, because usually things like the word policy or committee or council usually implies some level of bureaucracy. But in the case of AI, I think it's really important, and we advise our clients this, and I would say this of marketers. You should actually get clear on what your policy is for what you can use, how you can use it, what you shouldn't use, so that you can innovate and so that you can experiment without worrying, am I doing something that's dumb, that's going to get my company in trouble or upset my customers or upset my people, or frankly just do something that's not responsible. So there's this whole level of like AI literacy, AI usage, and then certain governance that we really encourage our clients to spend the moment, maybe a month, to get that all in order. Sometimes it might take longer, and then they can start doing things like AI impact assessments. They can do road mapping. They can do promptathons and hackathons. Like there's a lot of different things that, like, we have all these different things that we advise, and they're going to not be one size fits all for every marketer, every department, every company. But we sort of get in there, and we, in our boot camps, for example, are all around what I just said. They're all around, getting the company jump started to get to the right level of AI literacy and get those systems in place so that the company can then do what they all want to do, which is like, okay, I want to innovate, I want to use this to be more productive, etc.
I love it. That's a great place to start. I think the AI literacy is important, and the 10-hour guideline is a great one. Okay, so let's jump a step further into the technology. So you get the literacy up, you're getting the organization up, you're learning the organization, you're creating on the whiteboard maybe where we're at, where we want to go, what are our gaps. Talk to us about the technology you're building and what in your experience you're finding are I think you're doing kind of something related into maybe multi-agent workflows and maybe talk to us a bit about what you're building and what you're most excited about.
Yeah, I'll tell you a bit about Spok, and I'm excited. We're very excited about Spok. It just launched a month ago, so it's very new. I'll tell you about Spok, but I think for marketers, when you hear this, maybe it'll inspire you or get your juices flowing for things that you all could be doing as marketers. So, and as marketing leaders. So Spok itself is eventually we'd like Spok to be a broad-based AI marketer or a broad-based AI marketing assistant tool. Right now, we launched it as a content marketing tool for the most part, meaning what we did is we took a couple different large language models under the hood and we combined them with a variety of third-party data sources like keyword research APIs and competitive analysis APIs that are out there for different, websites and APIs that capture what other people are doing and in the marketing sphere. And then we put it together with, we call it marketing intelligence, which is a fancy word for us just being, trying to be smart and proficient ourselves at prompting. So when you think about AI, it's really just combining data with the actual systems themselves and trying to get the right result. But these AI systems are not consistent. They can hallucinate. They can be a little weird. They can be a little temperamental. And so we've been doing with Spok, the idea was, well, let's see if we can't do what we would do if we were a content marketer, which is like, let's go get consumer intent, keyword volumes, and other research like that, combined with LLMs, combined with good prompting, so that you could then just go to the AI and say, all right, I'm going to tell you my website. I want you to read my website, which Spok does. I want you to then surmise all of my industry, my competitive landscape, my customer segments, and my unique brand propositions. And from there, I want you to then pull the right research automatically and come up with some marketing ideas for me, starting with content plans. And it really, that's why we talk about Spok. We say, marketing insights in under 60 seconds, because you put in when you onboard on Spok, you put your URL in. It says, okay, I think I understand your company from your website. Am I right? You can adjust it. competitors, customer segments, brand proposition. Once you say, yep, that's right, it says, okay, great. Let me start going to work for you and coming up with some good ideas around what I think your customer segments are searching for right now, what they're thinking right now. And based on that, using the intelligence of the AI, it can then act like a content marketer, like you would expect somebody you'd hire to do, which is like, let me give you different ideas. And if you like the ideas, you can kind of go down a rabbit hole. You can essentially start iterating and saying, I like that idea. Give me let's blow that one out a little bit. And so it effectively, it's not that different than working with a content marketer, but it's just doing it with an AI. And that's what Spok does. But I actually feel like for most marketers, that's the future of marketing. It's not that you're going to stop doing what you do as a marketer, but you're just going to have an entirely new type of general purpose tool at your disposal. And you should start experimenting with how you can get the most out of it. And frankly, be more productive. And my guess is that it ends up being that you can do more as a marketer, as opposed to just saving costs.
Right. Hey, Adam, when you're in working with the big marketers, what is there a pattern recognition you have around sort of what you think they should be doing first? Like I've heard some go after customer experience, some go after customer service, processing of documents. We see a lot of that. I see some efficiency around content development. We're doing a bunch of experiments in AI personalization and advancing research, but like, what's your sense in your experience about where value creation mostly, where the heat map would direct you in terms of, and if you're doing any experiments with any markers yet, that'd be interesting too as a lab. So,
yeah, I'd say the low hanging fruit for most marketers is probably going to be in content marketing, applied content marketing research, like we're doing with Spok, or personalization, where you're effectively using the AI to help you think through and actually create like segments and personalized or segmented content plans for each customer segment. Customer support, which I guess you could call it marketing, but it's actually usually kind of considered more of a different function. But like the customer support is an absolutely massive opportunity. And I think that, you're going to see a lot more of that happening where the companies are willing to let the AI be the customer support, like Klarna did, for example, and some other kind of famous examples. But I think those areas are pretty much like the low hanging fruit in terms of big kind of move the needle initiatives. I can't understate or can't overstate, excuse me, how good AI is at ideating and brainstorming with you. So the one thing I think that doesn't get talked about a lot, people usually tend to just jump to like, what's the big customer support thing I can do? Or what's the personalization, thing I can do? Because those can be very resource intensive or prohibitive for most marketers. But don't forget that the best thing you can do right now in a lot of ways with AI is like, let it help you do your job, like every day, all day. Like I would suggest, and people think I'm crazy, but we give this advice all the time. Like if you're not bouncing stuff off of a frontier AI system 3-4 times a day, 5, 6, 7 times a day, I think you're underusing it.
Yeah, I think anybody listening with their laptop open right now, if you don't have a tab open to one of the big models, you're behind. Figure it out. Right? I mean, I definitely have one. I think you're totally right. And I think what's interesting is the migration from using something general like GPT-4o or Gemini or Meta or Anthropic, pick your poison, to shifting to something that becomes an expert system that knows about your company. And so what I love you did is that you have Spok start off by reading your company webpage and URL. I actually do this. I found that I was needed to do the same thing when I wanted to have AI generate reports and analyzing advertising. If I just used the personas of who converted, it wasn't very good. But if I had it first read the page and said, this is the page that people converted, and here's the profile of who converted, all of a sudden it was way better.
Yeah.
So I think that's a brilliant insight, which is there's so much we can glean, or AI can glean and learn about us just by reading our company documents, reading our webpage, crawling it and starting off with that as the context window.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, like when we, in our boot camp, for example, we have a whole section on, prompting best practices. But when you break down prompting best practices, what they really are is you're really just saying to people, treat this like a human. Like most people, I think the biggest aha that a lot of people don't have yet, the ones that haven't used AI a lot every day, all day, is they still think of it as either some kind of marketing or research point or writing point solution, or they think of it as like a search engine. I mean, I understand why, because we've never had a technology like this. We've never had intelligence as a service. You can, if you, it's kind of like a synthetic alien intelligence, and it's not alive. I mean, not really. But if you think of it like you would think about another person, you wouldn't just, like in your example, Rex, if you had a person that was like shadowing you and that could help you for free essentially all day, every day, and you were trying to like get them to help you solve something or understand something, you wouldn't just take a one shot and go like, here, here's 2 sentences,
Right.
come back to me. What you would do is you would get into a conversation and you'd show them, well, here, let's take a look at this web page together. Let me give you some context. Let me give you examples of what worked in the past and what didn't work in the past. And it's remarkable how well that works without being a prompt engineer. You just treat it like a human, treat it like an assistant that's really smart and really knowledgeable and does weird things and makes mistakes. So you got to check your work. You got to be patient. You got to iterate. But that's really what this is. And that's not something we've ever talked about when it comes to technology before. So that's why it's so different to do transformation around AI.
Yeah. Hey, Adam, it's funny you say that. I saw some research here just a couple months back where some guys had gone in and it says, is the machine really like a human? And what if you started to talk to it? Like, what when you say please and thank you? Or what if you say, hey, could you really, really, really tell me this more? Like if you add a bunch of what I consider more human reactions. And what was funny, they actually showed the side by side. They got different responses from the machines when it sort of fed back. It was very funny. And I don't know if it was like changed the world kind of difference, but it definitely was a different answer. And so that
it was like 20 or 30%. That was some of Caleb's presentation at the AI4 summit that he was quoting. And the funny one was Caleb's my co-author for the book we did with MIT. But he was citing how in solving a math problem, if you included take a deep breath, which is impossible, obviously, for a computer. It did like more than 10% better. But it's because, these AIs, these large language models are trained on humans behavior and human content. And when humans do that, they do better. So I really like your advice, which is treat it like a really smart coworker who's maybe new to your field, and you're telling it the type of behavior you want and patience. So, but what you're also doing though is you are loading a context window by having this proprietary, specific AI rather than just a general AI. You're loading the context window, aren't you, with Spok? And that I think that's really important as well, which is if it already starts off knowing.
Hey, Rex, explain context window to people, though. I'm not sure everybody understands context window and then how you're relating that to Spok. I know what you're saying.
Adam, if you want to talk us through how you guys are doing
that's right. So what's amazing about these Gen AI systems, for the most part, at least up until now, this might change later, they work in a very similar way, whether you're on ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. When you start a new chat, think about a chat, like we all know what a chat looks like, but you got the blank box and you start by putting something called a prompt into it, and then it reacts, and then you start going back and forth. Okay. That individual chat history, you're filling up a context window. And so anything that you tell it at the beginning, okay, I'm going to give you some facts. I might upload a document. I might refer you to something. I'm starting to give facts, data, context into this context window. And in the world of AI, they call it tokens. So I'm loading tokens in, and those tokens are like kind of a shorthand for like digital characters that could represent, anything, and including like video and in images and audio and text and code. And then those all start to fill up the context window as you go down your chat. But it's also what makes your chat in theory better as you go along, because it's got more understanding of what you're trying to achieve. You got to be careful though, because you can also think of a context window like random access memory, almost by analogy. And if you start using up too much of it, or you get too far into your chat and you're too far down the context window, you might want to think about starting over, because at times these AI systems, they can start to forget things that were above. So there's a balance between, giving it just the right amount of information, or giving it, too little, too much. And that's both a technical description of a context window, kind of like memory, but also like how it works. And remember, these systems are starting to get the ability to remember from chat to chat to chat, meaning when you started over, but they don't generally remember. They kind of start over every time you start a new chat. And I think at times, over time, they're going to start developing memory. They're starting to start developing agentic capabilities, which means they can start doing things on your behalf. But for now, you're just in this sort of context window chat, and you want to be thinking about that. And by the way, that's very different than we're used to using any other software. When you use a search engine, you don't do that. You just kind of do a search query and you get a bunch of links back, and then you start over every time, right? And you're
right.
And when you use a CRM,
it is a hidden insight, though, on how social media works, because social media does remember, and that's why we end up in these rabbit holes. If you look, there was some wonderful reporting by Wall Street.
The algorithm remembers.
Yeah. So TikTok, they did some research on TikTok. The Wall Street Journal team did with some academics, where they created 50 made up profiles, and then they synthetically, these are just made up profiles, but they had them go on to different content areas and start off with different levels of interest, from left leaning to right leaning to all kinds of different things. And then they watched how the algorithm just kept feeding them back information. So I do think I'm really glad that people are beginning to learn about context windows. I really appreciate your description, because it's beginning to make us aware of how the answers that we get and the data that we get and the feedback we get is related to the information that we provided before. And you can use that for really good benefits, like what you're doing with it, having scraped the web page and know about that, and answering some questions, how well do we have it right and not, and now it can help you a lot better. But it's also good to be aware of how our data can bias us. And I mean, if you tell a large language model, for example, they give you an answer and you say, oh, you're absolutely wrong, it tries to be really helpful. And so it will change its answer, even if it was right in the beginning, to now it will give you a wrong answer. So this is great for people to learn about and think about.
So really AI has people-pleasing capabilities.
It learned it from us.
Yeah. Well, that's also how they're built too. They're built to be a helpful assistant in their fine-tuning process and alignment process. And Rex is absolutely right. Like, you need to understand. This is why, going back to AI literacy and usage, you need, and credit to like Ethan Mollick for, he's the one that came up with the 10 hours idea. And I learn a lot from Ethan Mollick and Paul Reitzer and all these folks that have been working on this for years. And they're sort of like, you start to realize, like, the more you use the technology, the more you realize, and the more you understand how it works. Like, I know that's usually kind of a nerdy thing, like, who needs to learn how the software works? But we know how humans work. Like, in fact, as managers, and I want to kind of segue to one thing for you guys on the marketing side on this topic, which is, I think the future of marketing is managing marketing AI systems. And I think that marketers are going to go from thinking they have to do all the work themselves and have all the answers themselves, what they usually do, to like actually being really good at harnessing marketing systems. And so marketers need to start thinking themselves, in my opinion, as managers. Now, even if you're an individual contributor in the traditional sense of the word, you can start to think of yourself as a manager, because you have depending on how you want to look at it, either one really capable direct report called an AI system, or multiple like infinite number of direct reports called AI systems. And when you manage people, it's a skill. Like you don't just become a great manager overnight. Like you learn how to be a good manager. There's entire like MBA courses, and frankly, most people learn how to be a great manager by being managed by great managers. And so the human capital, human side of being a great manager becomes really important. And we don't think about that when you're managing people, but it's kind of the same analogy for being a good AI marketer, because you need to understand enough about what makes the AI tick to know how to be a great manager of an AI system, which is really going to make you a great marketer in the future, is that you're a great manager of an AI system.
Got it.
I love that idea. I actually just assigned two people who now manage AI agents. And we're just talking about their incentive plan for next year. I'm like, well, actually, your incentive plan is going to be how much productivity increase we get by scaling that. And there's so many things we do in marketing that could be done by AI agents. In our case, it was doing the QA and checking if the pixels are placed on the website properly, or that the dashboard is showing the information, or if something isn't running, one of the agents runs a Python script that would normally take a human engineer a couple hours. They can do that, summarize the report, and give it back. And so this idea that you are working with these AI agents and your job is to help coach them by changing their prompts and adjusting and making it better is a whole new way of thinking. I'm so glad you brought that to this podcast, Adam. So tell me about what you're most excited about, of where you want to bring your company next and what you want to do next with your business.
Well, we're very excited about where Spok goes. I mean, it's early days, but we're excited to continue to improve Spok. That's on behalf of marketers that use it. But just like we're doing with Spok, at a broader level, as a company, we're excited about helping primarily marketers, but leaders of all stripes be AI first and really adopt it. And we are right now really passionate about imparting what we've been learning through all these case studies in the book. For example, we just talked to the head of AI at Moderna, and Moderna has a great case study that's already on the OpenAI website if you haven't seen it, but where they went AI first with the entire organization. And we've talked to Saul Khan from the Khan Academy and what he did with Conmigo. We've talked to a number of other CEOs and entrepreneurs and business leaders, and we're excited about helping business leaders like take their company and infuse this sort of AI first mentality first of all, and then practice. And we're helping them and we're facilitating, but really they're doing it. And it's kind of like I said, going back to my early Starbucks days, it excites me about what Form 3 is doing, is that whether it's the book or the boot camps or the fractional AI officer services or even Spok itself, it's how can we take what we're learning in this brand new field of Gen AI and get it into the hands of as many people as we can. And it's rare that you can be sort of a nerd about what you're learning, but also see it have such a practical impact on companies. Because you're right, there is an immediate aha moment that happens when this gets unlocked and people start doing what we're suggesting and advocating, and they're seeing tremendous double-digit productivity gains, to say the least, and seeing them. And productivity is not just about doing more with less. It's also about higher quality output with the same resources. And we get a lot of joy out of seeing our clients and people that are using Spok, get ideas, insights, and unlocks that they wouldn't have had if they weren't adopting AI the way that we're suggesting.
Hey, Adam, maybe just here, we're going to run out of time, but just maybe summarize for people, what is AI first? Like if you were to give, like, I don't know, if you want to make it 3 bullets to AI first, just, or however you want to do it, just give a short takeaway for the listener.
Yeah, the playbook definitely has the following key elements. It's AI.
And this is the book that's available on the website now. So if people want to go there, buy the book, they can get that. Okay,
that's
fine.
Yeah, you can go to form3.com and find the book pretty easily.
I saw it.
As the book explains, but just to boil it down, Greg, to your point, it's first of all, it's about AI literacy and education. Second, it's about governance, which is a combination of like get the right council in place, get the right use policy in place, and then thirdly, it's about road mapping and AGI horizon stuff and AI impact assessments and a lot of good stuff that comes out of that sort of third bucket. But it's getting your foundation right first, and then doing all those other elements of the playbook.
Got it.
Great. And so last question to wrap up the way is like, are there any directions that you think are the wrong direction for people to be going in, or things that you think are overhyped that you'd warn people that, hey, that's not going to be as productive? Take a step back from that area and come back on this path.
I mean, honestly, I think this is going to sound funny from someone who's kind of a consultant now on some level, but I actually would say be careful about hiring consultants. It's a funny thing.
Wow, that's a fair. I think what? I think that was the anti-Matt. He that was a mind sort of trick there he used with us, right?
Yeah, it does work in marketing.
No, go ahead.
Well,
go ahead.
The reason
why do you say that?
But yeah, tell us about unpack that a little bit. And I might agree with you very much. There's a lot of hot air out there.
Yeah, you could waste a lot of money in a couple different ways. First of all, if some consultant says, "Oh, I'm going to come in and I'm going to tell you the answer of what you should do with AI," like you should run. Like that's not going to be possible. Like we talked about earlier on the show. Secondly, the R&D, so to speak. In fact, we were talking to Professor Ethan Malik about this for our book, and he said companies are going to have to learn how to become AI R&D shops, which is not something that they're used to doing. They're going to have to learn for themselves how to create these solutions using AI, which are now possible because it's a natural language, general purpose tool. So they can. And so, and they're going to have to figure it out themselves. Only you as a business leader, as a marketer, as a business leader, only you understand like really what moves the needle for your business, what your culture is like, what your industry is like. You're going to have to connect the dots yourself between what Gen AI is capable of, what Gen AI is not capable of yet, and what your company needs. Those three things you got to triangulate on, and you need to do it. So a good consultant, a good chief AI officer, fractional chief AI officer needs to facilitate you doing that yourself, and outsourcing that and thinking that someone's just going to come in and tell you what to do is a mistake. And I'll punctuate it by saying this. Most people will say, I don't have time. My team is busy. We're swamped right now. I don't have time to go like figure something out and learn this. Like, why can't I just hire a consultant to come in and help me? And the reality is you're going to waste time, waste money, and get behind if you do that versus just realize you need to start using this. You need to start doing the things that are in the playbook. But we're learning the playbook from the world's experts. Don't take our word for it. Like we're getting this from people that have told us what's worked and what hasn't worked.
You're right, Adam.
I love your point that you need to take the time to learn this. You can't outsource it. It's one of those moments like with social media or like with the internet in the beginning where you have to get your hands dirty to learn this stuff. So
Rex,
that's a great place to end it.
Rex, I go back to like it'd be a little bit like saying I'm going to outsource PowerPoint, Excel, and Word. Like, don't be an idiot. You got to know that stuff today. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, okay. I did tell my dad when I was in 8th grade. He made me take typing. I'm like, what are you making me take typing for? And I'm going to have a secretary. He said, when you grow up, there won't be any secretaries.
There you go. You go.
I'd say the same thing about AI. If you don't think that you need to learn it, there won't be anybody who works in business who doesn't use AI in the future.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So,
okay, Rex.
On that note, that's it for this episode of Decoding AI for Marketing. I'm Rex Briggs.
And I'm Greg Stewart.
Be sure to catch all our episodes, plus subscribe, follow, rate, and review in your favorite podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. And if you want transcripts, you can get them on our website, decodingaiformarketing.com. And learn more about MMA and membership options, go to MMAglobal.com. Thanks for listening.